There we go. Okay. I want to make sure that I am recording this so you guys can check it out. But anyway, polyframe needs to be turned on so I can get a better look at my actual topography or topology of the model. And so I can actually work with ZModeler a little bit more closely. Otherwise, with polyframe turned off, you're kind of going in at blind. So I definitely would recommend just keeping it on for the duration of this model or duration of this project. Okay. So I'm also going to go ahead and change this cube from a just a regular cube. You see here on the point, it actually has a pole up on top, kind of similar to a sphere. That's actually going to be a bit of a pain in the ass to work with, and it has a lot of topology on it that kind of makes poly modeling a bit of a pain in the butt anyways. Like, we don't need this many faces for a simple cube. So what I'm going to do is drop down to initialize down here, and we can actually reinitialize it as a cube, a sphere, a grid, or a cylinder with different resolutions. So if I hit Q cube right here, you'll see it turns into a much, much simpler cube. This will be much easier to use when we get into doing the ZModeler. You can also change it into a sphere, a grid, so it's just a plane, or a cylinder. And then you can also change the resolutions on the X, Y, and Z axes however you want. So if I go to, let's go back to Q cube, I'm going to change this to 6. And then hit Q cube again. You'll see that now it's got a resolution of 6. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, down 1 at the sides. So that could be useful if you needed to do that. Let's just keep it back to 2. Hit cube again. And I'm going to use this. Let's go ahead and change the brush type from standard to ZModeler. And let's talk about this tool set. So as I move my mouse over the faces, you'll notice something's different. This is not like any brush we've used before. It highlights edges, faces, vertices, and it has a text that pops up underneath each one of these. So when I go to vertices, it says move points by brush radius. If I go to faces, it'll say Q mesh a poly, and it has like a little arrow that pops up, like a little line. And then if I do edge, it'll say insert edge loop. So ZModeler changes what you do depending on what you're selecting. This can be infuriating to use because of this simple fact. If you're not paying attention, it can be very difficult to work with. My recommendation is when you're using ZModeler, switch over to a mouse. It's easier to work with than a brush because our hands may not be as steady as they are when we're using a mouse. Okay, you may accidentally click on, say, you know, a vertex when you're trying to do a face or a edge. Okay, so let's talk about what each one of these does. So let's go ahead and turn on Symmetry. You'll notice that I now have Symmetry turned on, and I'm going to do Q mesh a poly. So if I do Q mesh, I can literally extrude out a face, and you'll see that I immediately get a full face loop that goes with it. Okay. Now Q mesh is kind of cool because what it means is I can also extrude this out, but it will automatically snap to its matching edge loop or matching edge right here. So instead of me having to go through and say, all right, delete intersecting faces, snap, you know, edges up, and then merge them, I can literally just move it up and it snaps automatically. So let's see that again. Pull that out. And if I do it from a different direction, and you'll see it kind of gives me a segmented movement down here. And actually I can make it to where it's just parallel if I wanted to. Kind of cool, right?
It's like modeling in Maya.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. Now, if I go to do an edge, I can do insert edge loop. If I hold down Alt, I can delete edge loop. Remember, Alt basically inverts whatever the brush is doing. So adding means, or I can add an edge loop. Alt means I can delete one or remove it. Okay. If I do move points by brush radius, this is just literally just the move tool. I can just move it around wherever I want. And then depending on the brush size, I can end up affecting more than one. If you hold down Shift, you can smooth, just like you would anything else. Now, with this being a lower poly model, smooth is going to have a much greater effect on this model than, say, something that's, you know, several million polys. Okay. All right. Now, that's not all this tool does. It doesn't just do 3 different things. If you right click, let's say if we right click on a face, we get all of this. Z-Modeler Polygon Actions. So these are all actions we can do specifically with a poly face. All right. We can do add to curve, inflate, bevel, yada, yada, yada. Right now we have a Q mesh selected. All right. But I can do, let's do inset. Okay. Maybe I want to inset. So if I click an inset, you'll see that I'm actually insetting a face. And then if I go back and right click and do Q mesh again, hold on to your butts. This is cool. I'm going to click and move inward. And I just made a hole. Pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
That is really cool. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. We can also do, let's see. We can do just a normal extrude. Extrude is going to be very similar to Q mesh, but it will not snap edges together. Okay. So if you extrude 2 things next to each other, they're not going to be essentially merged. So just be aware of that. But extrude works exactly the same way. I can extrude things if I need to. Additionally, you can extrude multiple faces at one time. Hold down Alt, paint these faces, extrude them together. Basically what it's doing is you're painting saying that these 3 faces are quote unquote a singular face, and by extruding them, it's treating them as a singular piece. All right, let's go to Edge. So Edge has similar but different actions we can work with. We can do a bevel, and that'll bevel the edges. So it kind of rounds them out for us a little bit. So you got something like that. And then we can also do, let's do vertices. Vertices we can move, we can mask, we can extrude vertice, we can also bridge objects together, and we can split. Let's do a split. So you'll see it actually splits into a new poly group right here in the center. And it does automatically give us, everything's quadded off, so it automatically gives us decent topology. So that's pretty cool. So say if I want to cut a hole through the top of this, so I can do a piece on top and the bottom, I'm gonna do a Q mesh. And so what it's gonna push through is basically just the two faces that I've selected. But I really would like to do all four of these. I could go and hold down Alt, but there's other options. So if I go down to Target, you'll see all this stuff here. It's going to take a while to go through it all, and I'm probably going to recommend some videos to you guys to watch to get more of a handle on this. But if you go to Polygroup section right here, you'll see where you can do Q meshing on a polygroup, or a border, or an inner, or an island, or even a poly loop. So remember, polygroups are going to be these multiple colored sections of a model. So like this is a polygroup. This is a polygroup. This darker green, this lighter green is considered a polygroup. The purple is a polygroup. So these are all areas that are specific to any action that you've done. So if you make like a new like extrusion or something like that, that creates a polygroup. Okay. So what I'm getting at is if I do a Q mesh polygroup island, so basically this would be considered an island, and I push this down, you'll see I can cut through down to the polygroup on the bottom. Okay, and it creates a nice clean hole through the model. Now again, go into polygroups. If I do, let's do inset polygroup island, I can polygroup, basically inset these two faces by themselves. Or I can do these guys by themselves. Now you may be going, well, what if I wanted to inset all three of these as a singular face? We can do that. So I have inset polygroup island, which I still need, but then you have modifiers down here. So right now it's center and border, which is what was giving us this, the center of the face with a border around it. We can change it from inset each poly to inset region. So it's going to consider this polygroup island as a region, and then I can inset the whole thing just like that. And then I can do Q mesh, polygroup island, and bring it out just like that. And then maybe I wanted to transpose this or move it. So I can actually just go ahead and mask that off, insert or invert the mask, go to move, and move it just like I would any other piece of mesh. Any questions so far, guys?
None yet.
Okay. All right. Let's do. If you wanted to close up a hole, we should be able to do that as well. So what we can do is we can right click and do delete. And I'm going to do a poly loop. So I'm going to actually delete a full poly loop. And so what we need to do is look at the direction we're actually going to be deleting. So if I click on this face loop right here, you'll see the little line is pointing out in this direction. If I move my mouse, you see it's pointing in an inward direction, like it's going to go around. Okay, so it depends on where you click on the face that is actually going to tell it how to delete. So if I do it this way, it's going to delete all of that. Probably don't want that. If I do it this way, it's going to delete all of this, which might be what I'm looking for. Specifically, actually, I wanted to delete these faces, and then I'm actually going to fill in this hole, okay? So I'm going to do edge action, close, and do close concave hole.
What are you pushing to bring up that menu?
I'm just right clicking.
Okay.
So then you can close the hole that way. Additionally, if you're not a fan of that topology, we should be able to do a bridge from edge to edge. So if I turn off my extrusion or turn off my symmetry, I can click on the first edge, click on the second edge, and it'll give me a bridge action from one edge to another. So you see I can kind of start closing up those holes that way. And I'm actually going to delete polygroup island, get rid of that. And since I'm bridging again, there we go. I do have this hole sitting right here. So what I can do is just go back to right click, close, and then close that again. It's just going to detect that hole in there anyways, and I'll just fill it in. So that's a little bit better topology rather than having all those triangles, I think. Okay. So let's do a bevel edge loop complete. I'm just going to go and bevel out part of this top. And I'm thinking probably making something like a wrist blaster or something like that. Might be kind of cool. Actually, let's bring it out. Let's do a Q mesh. I don't need to do polygroup island, and I'm just going to do single poly. And I kind of want this to curve over just a little bit. So see it's getting a little bit out of line right there. Let's go ahead and select that, invert it. I'm going to click on move. And what I'm going to do is just straighten this up real quick. So I held down Alt, moved my manipulator up to essentially this edge. And then I'm going to use my it doesn't like it with symmetry turned on. Let's turn symmetry off. I can just do it with this one and then mirror it over. So I'm just going to scale it in to where it's a little bit nicer, where it's actually flat. And then let's do geometry, modify, mirror and weld. Got to flip it over first. There we go. Looks a little bit cleaner now. Okay. All right, let's go and add in a few more objects. So let's do a cylinder. I think it's coming in kind of cockeyed. Let's do, actually, you know what? No, we'll use this, initialize. There we go. That's fine. So I'm just going to get a Q cylinder, unlock it, reset the manipulator, and I can use this for like some barrels. So I figure maybe it's like a double barrel wrist mounted blaster thingy. I don't know. I'm kind of thinking like Deadshot, I think has one. Let's go ahead and bring this out. Actually, let's just do one of these because this can be our baleen. We're going to be doing some ballooning with this. Then we can also do some insert mesh with it. Turn it to an insert mesh brush. All right. So what I want to do is go ahead and go back to draw. I want to insert an edge loop. Insert edge loop here. Insert one on the edge. This will make more sense in a second. And then I'm going to do a Q mesh poly, or just change it from a Q mesh to a inset. Poly group island. This is going to be kind of where the inside of the barrel is going to be. Q mesh, poly group island. There we go. So that can be kind of like a barrel. However, the problem is this barrel is not round at all. So we can go ahead and smooth it if we wanted to and subdivide it. Problem is, as we subdivide, you'll see it gets a little bit like a little marshmallowy right through here. It's not really keeping a really nice cylindrical shape. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and do another insert edge loop right here. These are going to be called reinforcement edge loops. Use these in just regular polygonal modeling quite a bit. And this basically is going to keep the model from collapsing as it is smoothed. So we'll go and divide it, divide it, divide it. Looks good. Okay. So something else we can do, I'm going to go ahead and let's actually delete the lower subdivision levels. I'm going to actually make a duplicate. Actually, no, let's not do it that way. Let's do it this way. I want to bring it back down to the original subdivision level. And then let's do a Q mesh. Let's do a poly loop. And let's actually delete the higher. We can subdivide in a second. But I want to get a kind of a thicker end of the barrel on there. Maybe like I don't know, like a silencer or something. Insert reinforcement edge loops. Divide a couple times. There we go. So with this one, maybe we could do some, maybe some holes that like go through the barrel. Sometimes you'll see that in military weapons. I guess to like, I don't know, look cool. I'm sure there's a reason for it. I'm going to go and take this cylinder. Let's try to get it look as, there we go. That's about as close as I'm going to get it. and we'll just boolean out. Becca, you're in the military, right?
Yes.
What do you call these holes in the end of a barrel?
At the end of the barrel?
Yeah, like there's like holes like go through. I've seen them on like some machine guns and stuff.
They're just ventilation holes.
They're just what?
Ventilation holes?
Oh, okay. We'll call them
I thought they were
ventilation
just fun smoke holes.
Yeah, so it cools off the barrel faster,
holes. All right, we'll go with that.
so it doesn't overheat and kind of like melt itself.
All right, so we're going to use these ventilation holes. Center it a little bit more. They're going to duplicate them. Hold down Shift as I'm rotating so I can snap it. And then we will do duplicate again, and then I'm going to rotate it, I think about 30 degrees. 45, yeah, there we go. I'm going to move that back so we can actually fit those in there. And then duplicate again. Do another 90. So you see it all kind of stacks together and it kind of almost like a little bit of like a checkerboard pattern. So here's the cool thing. We're going to go and make the barrel a starter. I'm going to turn off the mount, and then we're going to go and turn on live boolean. And then each one of these is going to be turned into a cutter. That might be a bit much. That's pretty Swiss cheesy. So let's turn off these. I think that's honestly better. We'll go with this. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and take this barrel, click on the parent, which is going to be the main barrel. We're going to go to Boolean, make Boolean mesh, and you'll see it pop up right here. So we'll do an append and append in our new barrel. Now, if you want to keep this all organized, we do have folders that we can put stuff in. We'll call this barrel parts. This is good. So if you want to keep everything organized and keep it all together, so it's not like it's, you know, getting lost or anything. You can just turn on and off as needed. And so here's your barrel. Boom. Isn't that easy? And let's go ahead and make this barrel into a brush. So we'll do create, insert mesh, do new, turn off the original brush. And then I'm going to go ahead and insert the new barrel directly into there. Might be a little big. Let's try that again. There we go. Okay. All right. Any questions so far, guys?
Not yet for me.
Okay. Let's stop at about 9:30, then we can do our critique. Okay. All right. Let's go and split off the barrel in here because we honestly don't need it to be a part of the main body. So let's go ahead and put it split to parts. Actually, not split to similar parts. Yes. There we go. So now we got the two barrels by themselves. We got the main body right here. So I need to alter the body a little bit. Oh, by the way, in order to save out your brushes, guys, so you can use them later on, have your brush selected, go to Save As, and you'll see it says Insert Mesh 1.zbp, ZBrush preset is what it's saving as. So we can do like gun, barrel. And I'm just gonna do like IMM and save it out. Let's go back to.
And that's part of like creating 3 custom mesh parts. Is that
Exactly? Yeah. When I was doing, I did a Batman about 6 years ago. And so for him, I did a bunch of these insert mesh pieces, like for his belt, his logo, basically everything, buckles, straps, all over his body. And each one of those ended up just being its own brush. So let's do, let's kind of throw a insert mesh right here. And then I'm going to do a move edge. And I kind of want to move this edge out where it kind of encapsulates more of the body of the barrel. Actually, we should be able just to move the whole thing out. Let's see. If we do slide, that's actually not going to move it out, but you can see how it'll slide up and down. That's still pretty useful sometimes. Let's do. Let's do edge loop partial and then move. Actually, that won't even do an edge loop partial. Let's do. Some other option would just be to transpose it out, but I don't really want to do that. Screw it. Okay. Yeah, so I think I'm going to have to do it that way. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and mask out this part like I did before. Invert. And I'm just going to move this out. Why are we not moving? Oh, it's because I have that unlocked. Sorry. There we go. It wasn't moving because I had the lock unlocked. So that can definitely be kind of confusing. Okay. So something kind of like that. And then what I'm thinking is I could do a mechanism where I have like basically two banana clips kind of like sticking out the sides, which might be kind of cool. I'm going to go and append in a cube. And again, I'm going to go ahead and initialize it to a Q cube. And actually, I want it to be kind of thin and narrow. And if you're not familiar with what a banana clip is, it's a curved rifle ammunition magazine. I mean, a lot of assault rifles use it, but I kind of think of like AK-47s as being pretty, like you see a lot of them, AK-47s. Of course, when I Google banana clip, this is what it brings up. Not at all. There you go, essentially that thing. But anyway, so I'm going to make it essentially straight, and then I can curve it using some of the modifiers. So let's go and take this piece. I'm going to actually delete that edge loop. And the reason why is because I want to insert an edge loop, but I can insert like a whole bunch of them at once. And so this will just let me do it really quickly. So let's do, I'm going to do an insert single edge loop here. So I want to do a little bit of edge detail first. And then let's do a bevel. First edge loop. So just like that. And then next thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and let's do Q mesh. And we're gonna do a single poly. I'm just gonna bring this out. And I'm gonna do Q mesh poly loop. So I wanna basically bring out this loop right here. Again, just be real careful what you're selecting. So something like that. And then I'm going to do a kind of similar thing here. Q mesh this piece. Single poly. Just like that. And then I need to inset, or basically cut in this poly group right here, this kind of maroon fuchsia colored one. So I'm going to do, instead of Q mesh, let's do extrude. Actually, let's do an inset first. Inset, we'll do each poly, and then we'll do poly group all. So I want to do each one of these, and I don't think there's anything else colored that same color. I'm just going to inset each of these. Maybe it is seeing as different ones. Okay, so that's not working. So let's do, just go and Alt click. And then we'll just tell it to do single poly. I'm going to grab these faces again. And let's actually, let's do a transpose on these. And I'm going to move them in. I'm going to narrow them a little bit. Basically, I'm just trying to get a little bit of detail right in here. Just like that. Okay, so that's basically just the straight version of the clip. Then I'm going to go into inserting multiple edge loops. Interactive resolution will basically be, you can draw in as many as you want. So I'm actually just going to go and do this. You'll see it kind of gets real stripy as you start drawing these in. So we'll just do this right here. I don't know how many of those were, but that was quite a few. And now we can do our bending with the deformer. So I'm going to go to the gear after going to move, and let's do a bend arc. Or honestly, let me show you this real quick because this is kind of cool. Bend curve. Doesn't like symmetry, so I need to turn off symmetry for it to work. But bend curve is kind of cool. Let me turn. Yeah, there we go. Because you can actually make a curve for it to bend against, which is kind of crazy. It's kind of weird to get used to because they have these different handles and stuff that actually tell you like how this is supposed to be manipulated. So if you look at these little handles here, you'll see where it has like a smoothness option. You'll have symmetrical, you'll have axis, which one you want to work with. And then this one will be smoothness and curve resolution. So you actually have it set to essentially these 2 points that it's actually curving against. But if we change the resolution, which is going to be this one, you'll see we get a bunch more points in here. And so I can actually click and drag and it starts to bend this. But the problem is it's not on the direction that we need it to be. So I'm going to change it to the arc we need. So I'm going to actually kind of pull, it's almost like pulling these little switches in a way. I don't know if you guys ever like rode in or drove like basically pickup trucks or cars from like the 1960s to 1980s. A lot of them have like these pull tabs for like the radio and air conditioning and stuff. Like you pull stuff at different positions, it'll do different things. I remember my dad had one. It was kind of interesting. But you can essentially create a resolution by pulling one of these switches. So it's like, which one is this? Resolution's this one. So we'll say we'll do 4 or 6. And then you click and move. And then you can kind of start to play around with the position of this model. And it'll kind of stretch, it'll kind of collapse on you. So this is the reason why I did the insert edge loops right through here. And so I had enough of a resolution to actually work with this and actually make it smoothly deform in the way I was wanting it to. And so this might give you a little bit more room to kind of wiggle around and play with it than you would if you were doing this just with a, bend deformer or a bend arc. Any questions on this so far, guys? No? Is anyone intimidated as hell?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
Don't be
Very much.
intimidated. It's just a different way of going about it. You'll get the hang of it. I have full faith in each of you. Okay. So maybe we'll go maybe a little bit wackier with this. Maybe it's, maybe it's like an extreme banana clip where it actually like kind of loops around like a ram's horn or something. I don't know. So maybe something like that. Once we're happy, double check, make sure everything is symmetrical, looks good. Click accept. Boom, there you go. Okay. And there's our banana clip. So I'm going to go ahead and let's turn this into a insert mesh. Now we already have an insert mesh made. So I'm actually going to select that one because, instead of having maybe 30 different insert meshes, maybe we just have one and it has multiple models on it that we can select. So I'm going to go ahead and select the gun barrel one, and I'm going to place my camera over the banana clip. So I want it to be drawn in like this, so like I'm looking down at it. And then I'm going to go to brush, create insert mesh, and it's gonna say current brush is not an S brush. Would you like to append it? So I'm going to go and say yes, I want to append this. No, I need to actually select it. Excuse me. I need to go back to draw. Sorry. Make sure you have that brush actually selected. Create insert mesh, append. And boom, now I have two meshes that I can use to insert with. That's kind of cool. So I can kind of build up a single brush that has a whole bunch of parts to it if I wanted to do that, which is exactly what I do want to do. So let's go ahead and take this piece. I'm going to go ahead and draw it on. Let's do. Yeah, look at those ammo thingies. Yeah, this thing weighs 30 pounds. How's anyone going to carry this on their arm? I don't know, but it's going to look bitchin'.
It's mounted, duh.
Say what?
It's mounted.
I can't understand you. Cheyenne, what'd you say?
It's mounted. It's a turret gun.
There you go. It could be a turret. We're changing all the time. I don't know why you would even need like a curved clip like this, but fuck it, it's cool. So
It looks
we're gonna do it.
Would it be recommended to use this in conjunction with like doing the normal sculpting?
Yeah,
What I'm thinking of is like using this to make like jewelry or bracelets or added stuff onto like a character, or is it better
Yeah.
to just kind of model all that?
No, you can use this to make whatever you need. This essentially was a tool that was created so people would not have to keep going back to Maya to model certain things. Because I mean, I will be very blunt. Before 2018, before they introduced this, or actually 2016, I think they introduced in 2017. A lot of times I would have to go back into Maya to accomplish some of these more hard surface models. It was just easier to do it in Maya. But
Right.
their intention was essentially to have people not have to go back and forth. And so it's designed to keep them in ZBrush so they're working more seamlessly rather than bouncing back and forth from one program to another. So that's really the point of it. Yeah. Okay, let's do some other stuff. I got about 10 minutes before we switch over to critique. Let's go and split this off to similar parts. So now this is, again, its own subtool. And just to be clear, you would not be considered finished with like this type of model. You could obviously subdivide it. You can go in and sculpt more details on there. Like if there's scratches, dents, stings, stuff like that, you can sculpt that on there just by subdividing the model and working on it. This is just a way for us to, quickly make a really nice base mesh.
Would you dynamesh this?
I'm gonna go ahead and drop my parts just kind of in just that folder. That's just gonna be my parts folder. All right, what do you guys think? Wrist mounted or turret? Which one do you want?
Turret.
Turret? Any seconds?
I feel like if it was a wrist mount, he'd have like really big, he or she would have like really big, bulky arms.
Well, probably the character was drawn in the 1990s, back when, what was it, Rob Liefeld was still work, or I guess Rob Liefeld still works, so probably would have massive forearms. Anyone else want to do turret?
Put it on your crocodile.
I'm down for a wrist.
And down for wrist. Anyone want a second a wrist or a turret?
I'll take a turret.
All right, we got a second for a
Not
turret.
sure
So
what
we're gonna go with turret. All right. So let's do a tripod. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a pinned. All right, so I'm thinking this will be kind of the base that it sits on, then we'll have a couple legs that come out. And I'm actually going to go ahead and make this nice and round. So let's do divide. Now the problem with dividing this, you see, is it actually turns it into a wheel of cheese. Not exactly what I need. So what can I do to kind of make it flat on the top and the bottom to make it look more like a disc, like a machined disc?
Insert edge loop.
Insert edge loop won't do that for me. At this point, what can I do to make this a flat disc, or a disc with a flat bottom and a top? Come on, guys. We have multiple tool sets we can use for this. One I was just using. Huh?
Use the flat brush tool.
Use the what?
The flat polish brush tool.
Yeah, technically yes, but that would take up some time. I can do this in one stroke. I need to essentially trim the top and the bottom. How can I do that? Baleen would work, yes. Yes, baleen would work. Anyone
There's
else got
also-
another approach?
There's like a trim, like a rectangle brush, but I'm not sure if that's what you're looking for.
So Control Shift. David, you are right. Baleen would work. Trim was actually what I was looking for. Control Shift, activate trim. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay, so I actually tried to trim my model like a night or two ago, and it wouldn't do anything besides add new polygroups.
It might have been depending on how you were trimming.
Okay.
It gets a little weird.
Agreed.
I was trying to flatten my feet because they were at odd angles, and it just kept on trimming. Eventually, I just had to mask it and then like flatten and smooth.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we'll do a bigger base, something that can kind of be sat down on. And then actually let's do taper. I'll show you guys taper. I'm thinking like it can be maybe a little bit triangular. So taper is kind of cool because we can kind of trim things, or not really trim, but we can kind of force things and have them taper a little bit from one direction to another. So basically if you push or pull from one end to another, you can taper an object. It will do it on all of the axes. So if you need to basically turn off one of the axes so it kind of only tapers on one side, you can do that right there. That's kind of useful. If you wanted to get just change up a shape or whatever. It's kind of neat. All right. Accept. And let's do a clay polish real quick. All right, and I'm going to do a Ziri mesh. So now we got a nice quadded bottom. And then let's do append, another cube. And I'm going to take another piece. Let's actually do draw insert primitives. And I'm going to go to cylinder. I'm going to draw a cylinder right there. I'm just going to make it just the same width. So basically, I'm just trying to round off the tip of the cube. Go over just a little bit. Just like that. I'll bring that down to here. So it's going to be a bit of like an articulating arm that the turret can rotate up and down on. And then I'm going to do another duplicate. I'm actually going to scale it down a little bit. Do something like this. All right, so that's going to make more sense in a second. So I'm going to go and take this and split mast. So this is its own piece. So I move that up there like that. And then this piece right here, I'm going to run a Dynamesh on. So now it's all one piece, but see when I Dynamesh it, it gets kind of, it loses a bit of its firmness right there. So actually I'm going to go back up the resolution. And now you see when it Dynameshes, it's nice and crisp. And then I'm going to run a Ziri mesh and just bring that poly count down. You could just Boolean it as well, but it's just an alternate method to get that same piece. And then let's go ahead and show you something else that's kind of cool. So I'm going to take this piece right here. I'm going to make a new folder. Just name it neck. I'm going to put the cutters into the folder with the neck piece. And so this will be kind of a shortcut way to Boolean something. So I'm going to go in and go to the folder, this little gear right here. And let's do Boolean folder. And so what we'll see is, actually, I need to make sure this is actually cutting. Turn that off. There we go. So now we actually see it cutting, and then tell it to Boolean again. So now it made a new piece, and it's Boolean through. So this way, you don't have to go in and Boolean the object and then append it back in. It's already in the stack in here. So just a simpler way to go about it if you need to. Does that make sense, guys? Yes, no? Confusing?
Looks good to me.
Okay.
Yep, kind of.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and bring this over and mirror it. Mirror and weld. So now we got 2 pieces. This base. Let's move that forward just a little bit. There we go. So you kind of see where I'm going with this. I'll make some brackets for this to actually articulate on. Base is going to need to be a little bit bigger. And then do some legs or something on here for it to stand on. And then I guess it'll be closer to being done. The body still needs some work though. It's pretty basic, but you get some ideas of where we're going with this. It's not a wrist gun anymore. Now it is a turret. Honestly, if it's going to be a turret, I feel like it just needs a longer barrel. Let's do that. Yeah. Yeah, now it's a turret. All right. Need to stop messing with that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and